transformative as the affirmative. So I've got a question for you. Would you allow yourself to completely disintegrate to become the next stage of you? Yeah. And I'm fascinated with the way that nature transforms before our eyes. It's like we're given this gift of being able to see something completely change from one thing to another thing and still be the same thing, technically. But can you imagine this conversation? Like I could picture it. Here's a caterpillar that says, "You mean to tell me that I'm going to get really, really hungry? I'm going to build a little house. I'm going to completely turn to mush. My head's going to pop off, and then I'm going to be able to fly." And God goes, "Yep." I don't know if I would have said, "Okay." I'm not sure that I would. So transformative is part of our core values, and so we've been going through them each week. There's 3. So loving, inclusive, transformative is our third one. And our definition is we expand and grow into our authentic selves by embracing our divinity. And a lot of times we think of transformation as becoming a better version of ourselves as if there was something wrong with our current self. Like, oh, if I could just do this, or if I could shed that 50 pounds, or like whatever the thing is. However, when we're speaking of transformative in this sense, I need you to be aware of one thing that's very, very important. That transformative, as we speak here, is not a transformation of your essence. Your soul, your spirit is already perfect because it is that spark of the divine that is in you. So what transforms in this case is our human awareness to be able to clear out all the clutter that the world gave us to realize that we are that expression of the divine. We're more powerful than we think we are. We're more loving than we think we are at times. We're more courageous than we think we are at times when we take the time to tap into that. And it allows us that moment to become fully aware that we are that with a capital T. These are our actions of how we get to that transformative definition. We practice the presence, learning to live and love in conscious oneness. So in our discussion when we were creating our statements, we talked about presence, and we thought about, okay, some people might not know what the presence with a capital P means. So practicing the presence, for me, is practicing that full awareness of that center of you, so that way you're operating out of it more times than not. You're practicing the presence of truly being a divine expression, setting aside all the muck and being fully there. And then to live and love in the conscious oneness is to truly embrace that connection with each other. So that way when you're peopling makes me tired sometimes. But when you're peopling and you get it doesn't even have to be something negative somebody does, because if you're having a bad day and somebody's like overjoyously happy, do you ever get that, what happened to them that make them so stinking happy today? And we do that to ourselves, don't we? We get into the mind chatter. But that live and love and consciousness would allow us to go, oh, something really good happened to them. Thank God for that. And then when somebody rubs us that wrong way, that weird way that challenges us, It could be looked at when we're living in love and consciousness as what's for me to learn here. When I was taking, I'm still taking this class. It's my last class. Whoop, whoop. But it's my, yes, last class. They saved leadership to last. I guess they're like, we want this fresh on your memory. All this other stuff you could get with a book. We're going to teach you some leadership. And there's this book that we were reading, and I don't have the title in my memory bank, so I didn't have the forethought to write it down. But it's 15 ways, and you're basically operating above the line or below the line. So your line is the neutral. Below the line is, here's some examples. I don't know why they think I did this. It's not my fault. So-and-so did this, which led me to that, and I had to do something else to make this happen, and now they're blaming me for it. We've done it, yep. I'm so angry I get up and walk out of a space. I'm so frustrated and irritated that I cannot communicate my words in the moment. I clam up, I freeze. So those are all your below the line beings, ways of being. Above the line is almost like that example I gave a few weeks ago when the guy cut in front of me in line. The checker said, "I'm so sorry he cut in front of you." And then I said, "Oh," a little snippiness goes, "I guess people aren't taught manners." And then him, being above the line, said, "Perhaps he has a lot on his mind today." I was below the line, he was above the line. Those things when you're getting in disagreements with people, but when you're below the line, you have to be right. And it's possible from perspectives that both people are right because we're not living the other person's perspective. So for them, it may be right. For us, it may be right. But you can, when you're operating above the line, have a conversation, if both of you are willing to not try to change each other's mind, but to understand. Are we going to have a conversation from a point of understanding or from a point of, I want to change your mind? Because there's a big difference in that conversation. The conversation to understand means that there's an opportunity for both people to transform whether they change their minds or not. And one of the other things that in this book, you're probably going to get more tidbits as long as I'm working my way through this book. But one of the other ones is like when we find ourselves below the line, they say we're adrift. We're drifting. So, and everybody does it. So then when you recognize that, oh, I'm below the line, how can my thoughts and my actions change to above the line? And that's when you make the choice to shift. So you can stay drift if you want to, or you can shift. To me, shifting sounds more stable. Drifting sounds chaotic. Drifting sounds like a toddler with too much sugar. Shifting means toddler, take a nap, recoup, see me in an hour and a half. That's kind of what it looks for me. When we're above the line and we choose to shift, we recognize everything as an opportunity. Everything's an opportunity. Each event has a lesson, and not all lessons have to be painful. I want you to find the comfort in that not all lessons have to be painful. Because I really hate it when I learn a lesson, either the long route or the hard way, and they don't always have to be if we practice the presence. Because if we're practicing more in the presence, then that shifts things. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then we're operating above the line and we're shifting when we see each person as a child of God and as a part of God. Because the essence of each person in here is just this speck of the grandness of the divine. Because there's not a spot that God's not, so God's in everything, so it's like we're not even a sewing pin point. So little. We intentionally engage in our spiritual practices. So what does that look like for us? When you actively practice your spiritual practices, here's where you can tell. We're going to call it the peace meter. When you're actively practicing your spiritual practices, what does your peace meter look like? I have absolutely no peace, and I'm doing it from your perspective of my meter's backwards, because typically the lesser is on the left. So if you're not practicing your spiritual practices and life gets a little chaotic, it may be here. But if you're practicing your spiritual practice, your peace meter gets at least here. But sometimes, and I can't, this arm won't go all the way back that way, but it goes that way, right? I don't need to break something trying to get it to twist that way. But I was thinking this week, like that is a really good way to determine whether or not you need to ramp up your spiritual practices or shift back to them if you've started to drift. It's where's your peace meter? Where is your ability to totally slow down for a little bit? What does it look like to be in a turbulent time in life and then remember there is only one power, one presence, active and alive in the universe, and that is God, the good, omnipotent. Everything else can seem chaotic. But when we remember that there is only one power, and that power is within us, then we can recenter on. And it's not the, oh, I recognize the power, here's my wish, God, wave your wand and make it be. It is the, I recognize there's the one power. That one power is within me. I have resources, or if I don't know the resources, I can do active things to find the resources. It is that knowing that there are moments when it's difficult and you have the comfort to be able to break down and you have your support people. I believe in your homework, and if it's not there in the sheet in the insert, if it's not this question there, I'm going to add this question there. Who are those people for you? Write them down in a place where you can always find it. Because when you're in it, when you're wading through the muck, we're less likely to remember our access points. I'm not ready there yet. What does it look like when you remember that that presence is in you? Because that allows, for me, it allows me to reset. It allows me to go, that power that's within me allows me to easily release stuff that doesn't serve me any longer. It allows me to not sit in the worry habits. It allows me to not lay awake in the middle of the night and evaluate a budget for an hour and a half in my head, because my monkey mind forgot that there is only one power, and that power is within me. So I can find the solution. What does it look like when we shift our thoughts to the affirmative? And for those of you who are really, really aware of unity principles, you've recognized by now I'm going through the 5 basic unity principles. Yeah. So what happens when we shift that thought to the affirmative? What happens when we go, I don't have enough time in the day to completely do what I feel like I need to do? And then when you slow yourself enough and you go, there is exactly enough time to do all that is mine to do. And when you affirm that, it allows your mind to go, okay, which thing has to be done today? Which thing has to be done tomorrow? Which thing has to be done in 3 days? Because it allows you to slow enough to be able to go, okay, which one of those things that needs attention it's not urgent or emergency like? That could even wait a week. So that way your long, daunting list of the things turns into something different because you've affirmed that there is the time to do everything I need to do, and I seek the clarity to make it be so. So when you shift your mind, it makes it a little easier. Has prayer brought you gently with God nudges that change things for you? You've gone into prayer, and then all of a sudden, and it may not happen in that moment of prayer. For me, oftentimes it doesn't. Oftentimes I'm affirming what I feel like I need. I'm affirming what I want to see. And then it's usually I'm driving, and I'll get wouldn't it be great if blah, 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 blah. And then that's the answer. And it's usually in those times where for me, because like when I'm driving, I'm doing something that I'm paying attention to. Like I can't go into meditation and driving. That would not work. But it's just that cars are going. There's the sound of the cars. I have the radio off. The other thoughts go through my head, but as they're gone and I have that moment of quiet brain, that's when the messages seek in. And I have to make sure that I'm aware enough to go, oh, there's the answer. Because sometimes we tend to dismiss them. And I like a gentle nudge from God. I prefer not the... We get them sometimes, though, right? Have you received God nudges that moved you to action and you were able to see the goodness of God? When you engage in your spiritual practices and you choose to take action, have you seen the goodness come from it? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're just planting a seed, and that's okay, especially if we're planting the seed without any attachment. That's not easy. Planting that seed and then trusting that it will grow where it's planted in the time that it was meant to grow in. I can't get really deep into gardening stuff because I am not that person. That would be my sister or my dad, not me. And so when we do this ongoing commitment to develop our soul and our growth, when we commit to do it continuously, it does create that transformation. Because for me, I had a full-on meltdown this week in front of loved ones, in front of friends. And in my conversation, I was allowed to let it go. I even allowed myself to cry in front of people. I don't do that. I don't, typically. And I usually don't allow myself to cry at all because it will trigger pain in my face. But I allowed myself to fully melt, to fully dissolve. Luckily, my head didn't pop off. But I did allow that because it allowed me to see that I've gotten out of the habit because I'm doing spiritual work to prepare a talk. I'm doing spiritual work because I'm doing homework with school. I'm doing spiritual work because I am praying for others. But all the spiritual work that I was doing was pouring out. It was pouring out of. And I had neglected my pouring in of. Because as much as people think that ministers are this, they've got their stuff together, we don't always have our stuff together. And I realized I wasn't filling my cup in a way that was intentionally for me. Yes, I was learning different things spiritually through school. Yes, I was learning things as I was preparing talks. Yes, I was learning things as I pray for other people, but I wasn't intentionally doing it for the purpose of it flowing into me. So when we commit to our ongoing soul growth, it is okay to set time to be selfish for you for 30 minutes a day, that you can sit with all the goodies that fill your cup, sip on a cup while you're filling your cup. That's usually for me, I'm sipping on my coffee when I'm back in my practice. And let those words feed you. Your soul is already, spirit is already as perfectly as it needs to be. But this human aspect of us needs that spiritual hug. We need that spiritual hug. And so we want to commit to that ongoing soul growth so that we can, metaphorically, caterpillar to butterfly without completely disintegrating and popping off our head. Thank you, Lainey, for that that illustrative measure this week. We were talking of talks this week. She's like, the butterfly. And I'm like, I will use it. Thank you. Because I didn't know their head popped off. And so this is going to be what we affirm, this definition of transformative for us. We expand and grow into our authentic selves by embracing our divinity. We expand and grow into our authentic selves by embracing our divinity. We expand and grow into our authentic selves by embracing our divinity. It sounds so easy, and yet it's so complicated sometimes.